always thought that being a Christian meant giving up the desire to be great at anything. For me, when I was growing up, especially in high school, I always wanted to be a great baseball player. Like I wanted to be a professional and I wanted to make it to that top level. But the problem with that for me was if I'm a Christian, I can't go that far and I can't be that amazing because that's a prideful thing, right? That's not a humble thing. I'm supposed to be humble and I'm supposed to be sacrificing everything I have for God. So I thought, oh, I can't be great. And you know what this did to me in high school? It made me really not want to be a Christian because I was like, but I want to be a baseball player, man. So I have to choose baseball or being a Christian. I would always like weigh the options, and I was like, dude, I think I'm going to go with baseball. Now I've come to learn that that's not true. That Jesus has actually put in us a spirit of excellence so that when he gives us our gifts, remember we talked about last week that our gifts should grow. And if he's given us the ability to play baseball or whatever it might be, then we should try our best at it and we should attempt to be great at it. You may want to be a great musician or a great singer or a great piano player. You may want to be a great person that works on computers and is very, very good at that and efficient at that, or a great therapist or a great doctor one day, or a great brother right now, or great athlete in middle school or in high school, or whatever it might be. You might want to be great at that. And I would tell you that's not bad and prideful, but that's actually a very good thing. It's a very, very good thing to want to be great at what you are doing because we're not called as Christians to be average or just mediocre and just sit back and live quiet, peaceful lives. But no, if we're going to shine like a light, then we need to be great at what we do. Here's the big problem though. When our greatness is the world's greatness, if we let the world determine our definition for greatness, we will find that that's not good and it's going to lead us into a real big issue. We're going to become prideful. But if we let Jesus define our definition of greatness, we're going to find that we bring him glory in our pursuits to be great. So let's go to our passage in Luke chapter 22, verse 24 through 30, and we're going to see Jesus describing what it is to be great in the kingdom of heaven. And for us today, what it is to be great in the church. So let's go. Luke chapter 22, 24 through 30. It says this in the very first verse. It says, then they, who's they there? They is the disciples. So then they began to argue among themselves about who would be the greatest among them. Now let's just pause there. So the disciples start to argue. Remember, there's 12 of them in a circle just arguing like who's the best. Like, I'm Jesus's favorite. No, I'm Jesus's favorite. No, you stink. No, I'm better. You did this. I did that. They just start to argue about who's the greatest, who's the one that Jesus loves, who's the one that's just the best. And you know what's crazy about this? You remember in church where we take communion, where we break the bread and we drink the wine, and that's a time of reflection and we're praying during that time and really being humble before the Lord? They're doing that in this passage. It comes right before this. They're doing communion. They're doing the Lord's Supper. And in the middle of that time where they're supposed to be being humble and praying and reflecting, they're sitting there arguing with each other. Like who's better, who's worse kind of thing. So now we have a real big problem with the disciples because they are seeking position and they're seeking to be great for themselves. But look how Jesus responds. Jesus says this. And Jesus told them, in this world, the kings and great men lord it over their people. Yet they are called friends of the people. But among you, it will be different. Those who are the greatest among you should take the lowest rank, and the leader should be like a servant. So Jesus is just, he's just changing it up on them. He's like, look, here's the thing. Your definition of greatness is determined by what the world says. So the world says all the kings and the lords, they come and they rule over everybody and they tell people what to do and they get all this great position. He says, but you in the kingdom of heaven, if you're going to be great, you're not going to lord over people and rule people and tell people what to do, but you are going to serve people. And so you can think about the disciples as they're sitting there arguing and talking about who's better and who's not. And Peter's like, hey, Andrew, I'm better than you. And James is like, nah, Peter, you're not as good as Andrew, but I'm definitely even better than Andrew. And they're doing all of this. Jesus says, stop. It's not about position. It's about service. Whoever can serve the most, whoever can be the greatest servant is actually the greatest according to Jesus. Now let's pick back up in the passage, and Jesus is going to continue. He says, and he asks this question. He's going to help us to understand. He says, who is more important, the one who sits at the table or the one who serves? He says this. Well, it's the one who sits at the table, of course. Watch what Jesus says. But not here. He says, but not here. So let's pause really quick again. Jesus asked them this question. He says, hey guys, talks to all his 12. He says, listen up, listen up. Who's greater, the one that sits at the table or the one who's serving the person at the table? Now for us, we would be like, I don't know. But we would have to go back into that time to understand what Jesus is getting at. If we went back into that time during the time when Jesus is talking, we would understand that sitting at a table meant power. And even getting the best position at the table was even more power. So if I sat at the head of the table, oh my gosh, I was like the best person in that room. I was great. I was awesome. I was powerful. I could tell people what to do. I was awesome. But the servant was the lowest. The servant that would come in and fix up the food and prepare it and stuff didn't even have a seat at the table. So in their minds, they're like, well, duh, like the person that's sitting at the best seat is the greatest. Of course, Jesus, right? And Jesus is like, yeah, but that's according to the world. Jesus says, but according to me and according to my kingdom, greatness is not sitting at the table, but greatness is serving people who are sitting at the table. That's what greatness is. Greatness is service. The world says that greatness is receiving service, but Jesus says, no, greatness is giving service to people who are sitting at the table. And he finishes up here. He says this, for I am among you as one who serves. Jesus says that. You have stayed with me in my time of trial. And just as my Father has granted me a kingdom, I now grant you the right to eat and drink at my table in the kingdom. And you will sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So that ends the passage that Jesus is talking to his disciples. Let me just sum up those last couple parts here of what Jesus just said. Jesus looks at his 12 and he says, guys, I'm just explaining to you that service is what determines greatness. It's not sitting at a table here on earth. If you're seeking position here on earth, you're going to end up in a place of pride and ruling over people and ultimately misery. But if you seek to serve here on earth, just like Jesus said, I came and I served. If you seek to serve like Jesus, he says, what will end up happening is you will find joy, you will bless people. He says, and then when we get to heaven, you're going to be sitting at my table. You're going to sit at my table, and you're going to be great amongst me and in my kingdom. And in heaven, that's where you're going to find your greatness. So that's very powerful for us today as a youth group to understand that, yes, it's good to pursue greatness in sports. It's good to pursue greatness in school and in your studies and in your job and in your career and even as a sibling and in your family. It's good to pursue that greatness. But what greatness looks like can be different than what the world would say it would look like. Greatness doesn't look like in sports, all of a sudden I'm the man and I'm the one scoring all the goals and everybody's like, man, that dude is awesome. Like, let's go serve him because he's amazing. Sit back, Sim. You're so good at baseball. Sit back. We're going to serve you. No, that's not greatness. Greatness is taking that position in as a baseball player and saying, as good as I am, I'm here to serve you guys. I'm here to serve you. It's like this. Some of you, you serve at church with your singing or with your playing the piano or with your guitar. You serve on the worship team, right? That's because you have become good enough and great enough to serve other people. See, the world would say it's the opposite way. The world would say, you are good enough and great enough. Now we serve you by watching you and marveling at how great your voice is. And you're just so amazing. No. In the church, we say we are getting good enough and great enough to serve you and to bless you. Now, there's a couple different things for me. Every time I think about serving, I always think about three different things. First off, and they're kind of objections to service. Like, I want to serve, but I don't know if I can because of these three things. So here's the first one. The first one is people that I go to serve sometimes don't deserve to be served, if you will. They kind of have an attitude, or I want to bless them, but they're just like, yo, who are you? Who are you to serve me? Or you're singing in the worship team, and everybody's just like, yeah, whatever. That dude thinks he's so much, or she thinks she's so awesome, right? And it's like, well, they don't even deserve to be served, man. Why would I serve someone who doesn't deserve to be served? Well, this is my answer to that. Jesus served you, and he serves me when we don't deserve to be served, right? It says in Philippians chapter 2 that he serves us so much that he died on a cross for us. That's the ultimate service, that I'm willing to die for someone and a people that reject me, that don't like me, that are not deserving of my service. Jesus says, I served you when you didn't deserve it. You should serve others, even if they don't deserve it, even if they don't like you, even if they are your enemy or they're your rivals or whatever it is. Like if you're playing in sports, you need to be serving the other team. Now, that sounds crazy, but that's the attitude we need to have as Christians. The second thing is for me, like when I go to serve, sometimes I'm just exhausted. I'm tired. I'm depleted. I'm like, dude, I'm done. I'm wiped out. I don't even feel like going up in youth group and talking or whatever it is because I'm just tired from my day. It's a long day. And I would say to that, that's another thing Jesus shows us, because Jesus regularly was able to find rest. He was regularly able to find rest so that he could recharge his batteries so that when he was out in the public, he was able to serve other people. So I would challenge you, if you find yourself exhausted all the time and tired and sleepy, and every time I'm around people, I can't serve because I'm just exhausted, man. So, I mean, you don't even understand. And I would say I do understand because that's me a lot of the times too. But I would say take regular times of rest. Go on a walk. That can be rest. Spend some time in prayer like Jesus would do that. He would get in solitude, meant being alone and praying to God. Let God recharge your batteries and fulfill you back up with energy so that you can be effective when you're out in public. And then the third thing is this. The third thing is that no one is serving me, so how can I serve anyone else? Right? Have you ever come to that point where you're just depleted or you're tired because nobody's serving you? And let me say this. You can't give what you don't have. So that means you do need to be being served, right? Your whole life shouldn't be, oh, I just want everyone to serve me and I'm just going to sit back and let people feed me grapes while I kick up my feet and have a good time. No, you need to be serving other people, but you also need to have people come behind you and serve you so that they can give you what you are giving to other people, okay? So that means to me, I need to have mentors in my life. I need to have parents in my life. I need to have pastors and teachers and coaches that can pour into me, that can actively, weekly, daily pour into me. Here's a big question. Are you rejecting that? Because sometimes I find that the people that are pouring into us or should be pouring into us, we can put up a blocker to them and say, no, you're not going to pour into me. Stay away from me. I want these people to pour into me. People that aren't even adequate to be able to do that, right? So I think it can be our job to open that door to say, okay, let's let the parent come in and mentor me and guide me and lead me and instruct me because I need to guide and lead and instruct others. Let's let the coach do this, or the pastor, the preacher, whatever, the teacher, or the student that's just above me that knows something that I don't know, come in and help me in what I'm doing. Don't be so prideful where people can't help. That's super important for us to know. Now here's what I want you to do practically. I want you to take out a piece of paper and to write down three people in your mind that you don't regularly serve that you can serve. Okay? So that means taking your gifts, your talents, your time, your money, whatever it is that you can serve and give to somebody else. I want you to write those three names down. And then after you write those three names down, I want you to list alongside of those three names what you can do. Just brainstorm what you can do to serve those three people. Okay? What you can do. And then here's the final real big challenge here. Serve them. Serve them. Just start that habit of serving people. And hopefully that will kickstart you so that by the time next week you start to understand, okay, this is what service is. And then the week after that, it starts to become normal. And the week after that, it's like, oh, dude, I serve people. Like, that's what I do. You know what I mean? You might have a list of people every week that you're looking to serve intentionally. Because the problem is we hear something, we're like, yeah, I want to serve, but we're not intentional to write it down or to really capture it, and so we forget it. Then it takes another year for someone to talk about service before we remember what we thought. So I would be intentional. Write it down and think about how you can Serve someone. It might be just through sending a text of encouragement. It might be paying someone's meal. It might be helping someone with their homework. Whatever it is, you need to decide that between the Lord and begin to serve those people. Because guys, again, as a youth group, if we can learn this, I mean, we would be so countercultural. That means the culture says like greatness is becoming so popular and famous and awesome where people just sit back and just serve you and bless you and scream your name. We're going to say no to that. No, no. Thank you for screaming my name, but really we're going to point to Christ and we're going to serve you. And if you appreciate what I do, I'm just going to come back and I'm going to serve you. I'm not going to sit back and say, man, thanks for just shooting my name. Man, I feel good about this. No, we want to be a group where we are serving people just relentlessly. So Jesus, thank you so much for giving us the desires to be great. That is something that you've placed in us. But I pray that you would take that greatness and you would shift it over into a Christ honoring, Christ exalting desire and drive. Help us to serve. Help us to serve. Help us not to be like the disciples where we sit around and argue who's great and who's the best and who should be this person and who should be that. No, Lord, but we sit around talking about how can we serve? How can we serve this person? How can we serve that person? How can we serve our community? How can we serve our parents? How can we serve our brothers and our sisters? How can we serve our team? Help us to begin to ask those questions. Then give us the abilities to go serve people. It's in your son's name we pray this. Amen.